Okay, so for your midterm review, I gave you all the formulas that you're going to need. So remember for primary trigonometric ratios, that's your sine, your cos, and your tan, that you have to have an angle right beside every single one. Okay, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan is opposite over adjacent. And if you want to remember how to write it a little bit more easily, this might be the way to write it. SOHCAHTOA. This is for a 90-degree angle triangle. Now, if you don't have a 90-degree angle triangle and you need to find a side or an angle, that's where the sine law comes into play. So the sine law can only be used if you have what we call a full ratio. So a side and the corresponding given angle. So we'll do a couple examples of those, as well as the cosine law. The cosine law is when it's not a 90-degree angle triangle, just like the sine law, but you do not have a full ratio. So it's a little bit harder to do. So your total exam is worth 79 marks, 50, 60, 79, yeah. Okay, that's your total exam. I think I added that right, 50, 69, yeah. So basically what I did for this review is I took questions and I went straight from it and I just changed the numbers. So if you're able to do the review, then you will be more than okay for the exam. So take the time to complete this review properly. So I'm just going to do some quadratic stuff because Miss Wei can do some of the quadratic stuff with you. So for this question here, it says to solve the value of the missing angle. So it doesn't tell you if you're using SOHCAHTOA, it doesn't tell you if you're using sine law or cosine law. You have to figure out that yourself. So if I'm looking at this triangle, I know that it's not a 90-degree angle triangle, so SOHCAHTOA is out of the question. Okay, you cannot do SOHCAHTOA because it's not a 90-degree angle triangle. So it's either sine law or cosine law. So the sine law, if you remember, you have to have a full ratio. So a full ratio is an angle and the corresponding side. So angle A here isn't given, so that's out. Angle B isn't given, that's out because you're looking for it. It says find angle B, so maybe I'll put a little thing here. And if you look at angle C, it's 112, and you have the corresponding side, which means that you can use the sine law. And to use the sine law, because angle C is the full ratio, you take the full ratio, which is C in this case, over sine of C equals, and then it's either going to be A or B. Well, in order to do the sine law, one of them has to be the full ratio, and the other one is the angle or side you're looking for. So we're looking for angle B, so we have to make sure that we have B over sine of capital B in our proportion here. So here we're looking for angle B, and since the angle is at the bottom, we're going to flip both fractions because we want our unknown at the top. So I'm just going to switch this to sine C over lowercase c and sine of B over lowercase b. So now I'm ready to solve this. Angle C is 112, so it'll be sine of 112 degrees divided by lowercase c, which is right across from angle C, and it's 10. We don't have angle B, so we don't write it, and lowercase b is 7. Point, you want to isolate sine of B, so you want this on its own, which means the division by 7 is in the way. So you multiply by 7 on both sides, which cancels out that 7. Just going to continue over here. So we have sine of 112 degrees times 7, and that answer divided by 10 will give us the sine of B. So we're not looking for the sine of B, we're just looking for angle B. So we'll see what we're going to do here. I'm just going to grab the calculator. So we're going to do sine of 112. If you have a calculator that's backwards, you have to know how to use it. So sine of 112 times 7 equals, so it's this number, but then we have to divide that by 10. And that certainly doesn't look like an angle that belongs in this triangle. So you have to remember what you have to do when you have a sine in front and you're looking for an angle. So anytime you're looking for an angle, you have an extra step. So in this case, you have to do sine -1 of the answer that you just got up here. Okay, so sine -1 of what you just got. So it's approximately 40 degrees, since we're going to round this to the nearest degree to make it a little bit easier. So therefore, angle B is equal to approximately 40 degrees. Okay, now moving on. Solve for the value of the missing side again. So by the way, again, question number 3 on your midterm exam will have a question with the sine law, pretty much just like this one. So if you study this and you redo it and you get the right answer, you're okay. Moving on to finding the value of a missing side, and this is a 90-degree angle triangle. So right away, you want to write SOHCAHTOA. So we know that this is SOHCAHTOA. Maybe you don't remember how to use it, but you have to remember the steps. So we're finding the side which has the question mark. So we're finding side lowercase b, because remember, anything across from capital B is lowercase b. When you have a 90-degree angle triangle like this, you want to label your opposite, your adjacent, and your hypotenuse right away. So the hypotenuse is directly across from the 90-degree angle. We don't know, well, we're working from the 50-degree angle, so opposite from that 50-degree angle is side B, and that only leaves the adjacent to be between side B and C, which is actually called lowercase a, so that's a little bit confusing. So we're finding side B, we're given the hypotenuse, and we're given the 50 degrees. So I shouldn't have put find B. We're actually looking for the opposite, okay, which is side B. So you just have to make sure you use the words opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse in this section because it might be confusing. So because I'm finding the opposite and I'm given the hypotenuse, you're going to use the sine ratio. But don't forget that besides sine, cos, and tan, I need an angle. Okay, so it's sine of 50 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. Sine of 50 degrees equals the opposite divided by the hypotenuse, which is 6. And in this case, I'm looking for the opposite, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. So we do sine of 50, and then we're going to multiply that by 6, and it's 4.6. So the opposite equals approximately 4.6, and we don't have units here, so it's just 4.6. So when you go therefore, you would say lowercase b equals approximately 4.6. Okay, so that's to find a side. All right, the next one is a word problem, so you have to be able to draw the picture. He's using a 2.6 meter long ramp, so I'm going to make the ramp here. That's 2.6 meters. If the bottom of the ramp is 2 meters from a moving van, so the van's over here, there's the back of it. We all know I'm super great at drawing. Okay, so the guy's moving. There's a ramp, which the ramp should probably reach over there. Close enough. We want to know the angle between the ramp and the ground. Well, here's the angle that we're looking for right in here, and we want it to the nearest degree, which means no decimals. When you're doing questions like this and you're on the ground, we know that it's 90 degrees. And I would go ahead and label my triangle. You don't ever want a triangle that's not labeled. So if we want the angle, we're looking for angle A. Okay, so find angle A. And you're given, before you do that, you probably want to label your opposite, your adjacent, and your hypotenuse. So from angle A, the opposite is between side B and C. The hypotenuse is the one directly across from the 90 degrees, and that leaves us with the adjacent being at the bottom there. So we're given the adjacent, and we're also given the hypotenuse. So if you take a look at A and H, okay, if I just go up a little bit, A and H is actually cosine. So we're going to use cosine, and I told you need an angle here, but you might question, I don't have an angle, so if you don't have it, make sure you write it in capital letters. So there's the ratio for cos with the angle. The adjacent is 2.0 and the hypotenuse is 2.6. So a lot of people get stuck here for some reason, but just take a look at what that line means, and it means to divide. So what you're going to do at this point is just do 2.0 divided by 2.6, and again, you're looking for an angle. Okay, don't forget that when you're looking for an angle, you have to go one step further and do second cos of the answer that you just got, or of 2.0 divided by 2.6. Okay, so you can do it that way. And if we round to the nearest degree, this would be 40 degrees. Okay. So here we can't just put a concluding sentence with angle A equals 40 degrees. We have to answer the question. So therefore, with the concluding sentence, the angle is approximately 40 degrees. There you go. There's your concluding sentence, and that's where you get your 4 marks. Okay. Moving on, we have 2 friends that are walking back to each of their homes. So the angle between them when one friend is 12 meters away and the other friend is 15 meters away is 83 degrees. Okay, the angle between them when one friend is 12 meters away and the other friend is 15 meters away is 83 degrees. So there's my 12 meters and there's my 15 meters, and I'm just going to close up this triangle. Okay, it's not a right angle triangle. It's just a regular acute triangle. How far apart are the friends? So first thing, label your triangle. Okay, I'm going to label my lowercase a, lowercase c, lowercase b. From here, you have to decide if you can use the sine law or if you can use the cosine law. So if you take a look at your diagram, in this case, you cannot use the sine law because there's no full ratio. So you have an angle, but you don't have the side. You don't have an angle, but you've got the side. You don't have an angle, but you've got that side. So you cannot use the sine law because you're missing the full ratio. So in this case, if you can't use the sine law, and this is not a 90-degree angle triangle, you have to use the cosine law. So the cosine law states to find a side. Okay, if I go up here, there's 2 cosine laws that I gave you. Okay, there's the cosine law to find a side, which is this one. And then there's the cosine law to find an angle. I find this formula a lot easier. If you want some help with it, please just see me. We found out how to find an angle a little bit more differently, but if finding an angle is not in your review, then move on. So we're finding the side. So the formula for that was c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos of c. But we're looking for side A, so we have to change this. So a squared equals the 2 other side squared, added, minus 2. Remember to put b and c here, and cosine of the angle across from the side that you're looking for. So now you just start subbing it in. So lowercase b is 12, lowercase c is 15, and we're just subbing this in. And cos of angle A, which is 83 degrees. So I'm going to do a little bit of math here. 12 squared is 144. Okay, I'm just going to show you that. 15 squared. Okay, so 15 squared, we have to keep going. 15 squared is 225. Okay, so we just type that in. And we'll go ahead and calculate what negative 2 times 12 times 15 is. And it's negative 360. Don't forget that there's a multiplication happening here between negative 360 and cos of 83. But we can add 144 and 225. That we can do. Okay, so we can do this part, which is 369. What I don't want you to do is subtract the 369 and the 360. Do not do that. So we're going to go ahead and calculate that whole line, one shot. Okay, so minus 360 times the cos of 83, which is 325.13, rounding it up. But you want to do the square root of that answer because there's a squared here. Okay, so A is going to be the square root of that answer, which is approximately 18 meters. You want a concluding sentence, so how far apart are the 2 friends? Therefore, the friends are about 18 meters apart. So if you do all these questions for trigonometry, you will be fine. Even with quadratics, I'm just trying to look if there's anything else here for quadratics. Nope, you should be fine for your trigonometry if you just study these questions, but you have to take the time to study them, because if you don't, it's going to be a bit tough.